Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to Ramacrow. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from an anonymous caller. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Hi Lloyd, you can use this for your channel if you wish. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here, so maybe this helps someone else. I'm fourth generation. My husband was also raised in it. He's been awake for a long time now and isn't super close to his family, so he would disassociate today, but I'm extremely close to my family, especially my grandma and my parents. Literally, the thought of being shunned, it makes me feel sick. All just because I don't believe anymore. It's stupid. But anyways, what makes this even harder is I have kids. I do not want them to be indoctrinated. I want them to enjoy school. This is their first year going to school. I want them to have fun, not be the religious weirdo kid that I was. I want to celebrate their birthdays. I don't even care about the holidays. I just want to live our life. But anyways, I just woke up a couple months ago after my husband showed me the Australia Royal Commission, which I had never heard of and made me sick. Anyways, I'm just so stressed and anxious about crap hitting the fan. We have been hit and miss at meetings, and I've been watching your convention recap so I can tell my mom I've seen it. But another problem is my parents go to the same congregation as us. So they know if we're there, they know if we're missing, they know if we've been out in service, like everything. So it's extremely difficult to fade unless we move, and that's not an option right now. So, I don't know. I'm just so confused on what to do and how to handle it. I literally feel sick. I can't kill my grandma. She's super old, and I feel like before she passes, if I do anything, she's just gonna die, and I can't kill my grandma. But I can't take my kids to the meeting either. I don't want them to believe this stuff. I know it's false now, and I'm unpacking it all, but I can't do that to my kids. I don't want to go to meetings. My husband hasn't wanted to go to meetings in a long time, but he's been going for me and playing along for me until I woke up. But we just don't know what to do. Love your channel. Thanks so much. I hope your beautiful family's well. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for that voicemail. And it was delightful to hear some young voices in the background, which gives some indication regarding the ages we're dealing with. And it helps to picture your dilemma. This is a really difficult situation. You're talking here about the potential indoctrination of your children by your believing parents. And if you know anything about my story and my situation, you'll know that that's something that I've had to deal with, or Deanna and I have had to deal with. And it's a really difficult situation. Ultimately, decisions are going to have to be made one way or the other. Maybe it would help you if I just kind of talk through some potential things that you could do or might consider. But ultimately, there's no right or wrong answer. You need to make these decisions for yourself, and no one can or should shame you for making a decision that they wouldn't make, because it's not their life, is it? It's all very well for someone in their armchair to say, oh, they should do this or they should do that. But ultimately, no one knows the situation like you do. There's no way you can summarize in 2.5 minutes, as you just have done there. There's no way you can explain everything. And there's no way you can explain something as profound as a human relationship of the kind that you have with your parents, the relationship that you're trying to preserve. So with all of that out of the way, I just think it's worth reiterating that there's a lot on the line here, because one of the things, or maybe the thing that made it so important for Deanna and I to get out, to fully disassociate, was the fact that Jessica was on the way, and we knew that if we tried to fade, if we stayed inside the organization, even if only in name, this would provide some kind of excuse or some kind of pretext for believing family members to assume the role of indoctrinating Jessica on our behalf. Oh, they're not doing it, so I'm going to do it. You know, that I'm doing what they should be doing. And we wanted to draw a line in the sand and say, no, the indoctrination stops here. So that was our thinking. And in hindsight, I think we made exactly the right call, exactly the right decision. And even despite taking that extremely strong stand, I think I'm entitled to say that there's still been instances where believing Jehovah's Witness family members have taken it upon themselves to try to indoctrinate Jessica in particular. So even when you make that stand, there's still, it's kind of in their programming, isn't it, to push at those boundaries and do what they can. But in those situations, at least we've been able to put our foot down and say, whoa, you know, you've slipped up here. No more of this, thank you. Or you're not going to be trusted with looking after Jessica again or the children again. So again, the disassociation has helped in that regard. Now, having said all that, you express some very strong or deep concerns about the impact on your family relationships if you were to disassociate, which it seems your husband would be willing to do, but you're unwilling to do. You say that it's making you stressed and anxious. You say, I can't kill my grandma. And just to be absolutely clear, in case this is being checked by YouTube reviewers, you don't mean literally kill your grandma. You mean that if you were to leave the religion, it could be the final nail in the coffin. It could be such a psychological trauma for your grandmother that it could potentially be very damaging to her health and or lead to her demise. So I think that's what you mean, just to be clear. And those are justifiable concerns. All I would say is that as complicated as human relationships are, what you ideally want to avoid is a situation where other people's decisions and the way other people choose to live their lives is impacting on your life. And especially if it starts impacting on the lives of your children. You know, we all have our time on this planet. We all have our 60, 70, 80 spins around the sun if we're lucky. We get to decide what we do with that time. Time is limited. Life, it really is short. And I think it's quite tragic when previous generations of a family impact on future generations of a family in such a way that they spoil that fairly brief window of being alive, of being able to enjoy life and try to understand the universe and experience things. I think it's quite tragic when, for whatever reason, the decisions that the previous generation has decided on impact deleteriously on the well-being of future generations. So try, if you can, to look at this not just as an interpersonal thing or a situation where you're dealing with specific relationships. Try, if you can, to look at the broader picture. of this being a generational issue. And also, I'm sure, as a mother, your feelings of protecting your children will be profound, will be very much present. So if you decide to, along with your husband, disassociate, never feel like you're betraying your parents or betraying your grandparents, even if it does have a very profound impact on them, even if it does really upset them. They can't hold you over a barrel. They can't dictate the way you live your life and the decisions that you make on behalf of your children in the interests of your children. And it may be that I'm preaching to the choir. It may be that you already know this. But since you've been out so recently, and since this is still very early days, it could be that you need some validation in that respect. Maybe there's a way for you to have the best of both worlds. Maybe there's a way for you to just fade and for you to come to an understanding with your parents whereby they don't try to indoctrinate your children, whereby you agree that discussing the religion is off the menu, whereby they appreciate that if they were to try to police you in terms of your attendance at meetings or in terms of what your ideas are, or to the extent to which you still agree with the religion, this could have a devastating impact on the family on all sides. So maybe it's possible, just with some communication, to sit down and negotiate a way through this. Maybe that could work. Maybe communication is the key here. But again, the problem you have is that when it comes to cults, the ends always justify the means, don't they? So even if you got them to agree to something, would they stick to it? My personal experience is, at the very best, there will be relapses, there will be issues to contend with. But it could be that negotiation works for you. Another option you might want to consider is moving. I realize that moving is quite often a very unsettling thing to go through, especially when you have children. But you really don't want a situation where you're being policed and where your believing family are acting as the eyes and ears of the local body of elders. If it is possible to just relocate a little bit or just rearrange your affairs so that the organization has a bit less of a grip on you in terms of surveilling you and monitoring you, that might also just ease things a little bit. But as I see it, this is a case of the age-old dilemma: do I fade or do I disassociate? And nobody can make that decision but you. Hopefully I've just talked you through a few things that might be worth thinking about, but ultimately you need to make the decision. And on the point of you saying that you feel stressed and anxious, that would trigger my usual disclaimer of saying, well, if you're in any situation where your feelings are overwhelming you, you need to seek out the advice of a mental health professional, which I am most certainly not. So the advice I'm giving in this voicemail is no substitute for intervention by somebody who understands brain chemistry and or human psychology. So with all of that said, I hope that some or all of what I've said is useful for you. And as a fellow parent, as someone who has very much been through this dilemma, I do feel for you and I wish you the very best of luck. But that's all I have time for. If you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message on this channel. But that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for watching.